This
I was meant to move mountains. I was born to sing it louder, shout it to everyone around me. World's gonna hear my song. I've got stories on my mind of those who led before my time. I know, the world's gotta hear my song. I'm gonna take a risk to grow. I'll take a chance and stand with hope. I know, the world's gotta hear my song. I was born to be a leader. I was meant to move mountains. I was born to sing it louder, shout it till everyone around me. World's gonna hear my song. I was born to be a leader. I was meant to move mountains. I was born to sing it louder, shout it till everyone around me. World's gonna hear my song. I was born to be a leader. I was meant to move mountains. I was born to sing it louder, shout it till everyone around me. World's gonna hear my song. Hear my song. The world's gonna hear my song. Sing it louder, sing it louder. Oh, hear my song. I've got change on my mind. No slope is too steep to climb. I know the world.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Lisa Wolf, and I have the pleasure to serve as the Director of Premier and Private Client Services for Bank Midwest. I'm so pleased that Bank Midwest has the opportunity to support programming like this. We know that women in leadership positions results in a more diverse perspective, a broader talent level, and overall a stronger bottom line. We have been a proud partner of the KC Chambers Women's Leadership programming for more than 5 years. And that's because Bank Midwest strongly supports the empowerment and advancement of women. That includes encouraging and advocating that women indeed can make a change in our communities. Earlier this month, we hope you were encouraged to consider board service, nonprofit, civic, for profit, or all of the above. As our moderator and our 2020 Athena Award recipient shared, just join a board. We hope today's events will help you to take one step closer to sharing your time and talents with the help of United We's Fast Growing Appointments Project. The Appointments Project empowers women and strengthens communities by increasing the gender diversity of civic boards and commissions to better reflect the communities they serve. The research-based, tested, and systematic approach has resulted in more than 150 women being appointed to civic boards and commissions, and women of color representing 34% of applicants. You will also hear from 3 women who have been appointed with the help of United We, and they're here to share their experiences with you today. It is my great pleasure to introduce Beth Felsky, the Director of Appointments Project. Please welcome Beth.
Hi, and thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you for your support of this initiative. I'm going to share screens here, so bear with me just a minute. Thank you. Once again, I'm Beth Felsky, and I'm the Appointments Project Director at United We. And United We advances all women's economic and civic leadership. So the Appointments Project was established as part of that mission by increasing the number of women serving on boards and commissions and decreasing the barriers that prevent them from doing so. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit, and a research-based organization. So I'm going to start right there with the research. At United We wanted to take a look at, are governments aware of the gender disparity on boards and commissions? Is this something they want to change? How do women feel about civic leadership? And once again, what are those barriers that are preventing them from applying and getting appointed to boards and commissions? So the research tells us, here's some of the reasons for low participation. And this is based on a University of Kansas research study done by Dr. Barbara Kerr. And I also wanted to mention, we're really excited. We have another status of women research results coming out at the end of this summer. So continues to be a big part of what we do at United We. But lack of confidence, not being asked, women are also really concerned about, is their time going to be spent in a useful way? And then really were reluctant to be on a board or commission unless they felt like they really had a sense of belonging, like they were, welcomed to be there. And so based on a research study at University of Missouri Institute of Public Policy, we know that when women serve, the results are great, right? Increase in public trust in government, better efficiency, improving the quality of life for residents in a community, and really driving innovation as well. And so one of the things I wanted to point out as an example is when we launched Appointments Project in Kansas City, the number of women appointed to boards, as you can see here, increased from 33 to 43% in 3 years. And keep in mind that the population of women is 51.3%. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we need to be to have boards and commissions that are representative of our community. I also wanted to take a look at kind of, larger scale to point out some numbers. And this is according to the Center for American Women in Politics. 30.5% women hold elected or appointed positions at the municipal level in government. So this was looking at populations of cities over 10,000. And you can see the Missouri numbers, 29.8, and in Kansas, 28.6. But it's important also to point out, the numbers of women serving in the state legislature. And once again, you can see Missouri 26.4 and in Kansas 29.7. And so we know that boards and commissions are often that launching pad for women to run for elected office. And so that's what really makes some of these numbers important. So Appointments Project, based on this research, serves as a resource, a guide, and a voice, and an advocate for women. and working on both sides with the municipalities and the state elected officials, as well as empowering women to serve. So just kind of a quick snapshot of the Progress of Appointments project. We have over 150 appointments and counting. We work with cities, counties, and states, and in rural and urban areas. We are excited about our scaling, and just in this past year, we've expanded to Fort Worth, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Oklahoma City. So we're really excited, about the Progress of Appointments project. And also, wanted to point out the numbers on the right here. 34% women of color for those who are registered with Appointments Project, and 18% who have actually been appointed. Keep in mind with our numbers and data, these are folks who opt in to share ethnicity and additional information with us. And so diving into appointments, we always say you are ready and you are qualified. So I always want to point out, you don't have to be an expert in Robert's rules or Missouri Sunshine Laws, or on the Kansas side, COMA, or the Kansas Open Meetings Act. Although that information and resources are out there, if you feel more comfortable being familiar with Robert's rules, there's some great cheat sheets out there. The Appointments Project can always direct you to those type of resources. But most new board members can easily learn that along the way. And so Robert's rules oftentimes is some of the feedback I hear from women, I don't know the yays and nays of meetings. And so I always want to, reassure that a lot of people new to boards do not, and it's not just women that don't know, it's men as well. And so, just an example of one of those things that just is important to point out, that there are resources out there and not a requirement to serve on a board or commission. So real quick, we ask that to register with the Appointments Project. And by doing that, you're providing information to us that allows us to be a resource and help you find a board or commission that's right for you. It's really just a matter of identifying what your strengths are and what you can bring to the table and what your interests are. And so one of the things I'd like to point out as well too is when you think about boards and commissions, oftentimes a board or commission that might be say focused on real estate might be really looking for someone who is outside of that industry to serve on that board. So I wouldn't limit yourself in terms of boards and commissions and what you're taking a look at and what your skills are, because you might be surprised your skills would be transparent to quite a lot of different boards or commissions. And when you register with the Appointments Project, you also receive a toolkit that provides additional information. So I'm going to just go through here fairly quickly, but wanted to give you some snapshots of what's out here. This is Kansas City's listing of boards and commissions. And so you can look through a variety of boards. And we'll talk about this a little bit with the individuals who are sharing their time with us today to talk about boards and commissions. But, when you're looking at all these different boards and commissions, you might need to pivot. You might look at one and say, oh, this is great. Well, there might not be any vacancies, or maybe there's a vacancy, but not a whole lot of effort to necessarily prioritize filling that vacancy. And so I also tell folks, be patient during this process when you're applying to boards. Some women with Appointments Project have secured a board position very quickly because that board was on the radar of elected officials and they wanted to fill that. And some, had filled out an application and heard back as long as 18 months later, because then they were ready to fill that position. So keep all these things in mind as you're looking at boards and looking to apply. There's also, you know, when you're looking at the name of a board, sometimes it doesn't necessarily, it's not transparent what that board actually does. So I encourage you really to look at those definitions. And here are just a couple, I'm not going to read through these, but a couple of boards and commissions and an example of some of the functions of that board and commission. Here is just a sample of the online application for Kansas City boards and commissions. And Kansas City has spent a lot of time and energy in the past year really updating their website and simplifying their board application. So you might take a look at that as well. Here's Jackson County's website, and really you can just Google board and commissions and find these pages. But you'll see the application is right there. The listing of boards and commissions are there. I also want to say it's important too that you know your districts and with the county, and we do collect that information on our application. So the more information you put in there, the better we can help you find a board fit for you. Or if I know of an opportunity that's District 1 for, you know, the Ethics Commission, then I can easily identify, here's somebody that lives in that district and reach out to you with an opportunity. So really important to kind of know your district. And then when we get into state appointments, these are a little bit different in terms of appointment process. A lot of these state boards will require Senate confirmation. We recommend having, you know, your senator representatives write letters of recommendation for you on those that specially require that Senate confirmation. But the website, once again, is user-friendly. You can search the boards and commissions, what they do. And you also have on the website right there for you the contact for boards and commissions if you'd like to follow up. But the application is online. Here's the Kansas website, what it looks like. You can see, learn more about boards, commissions, and advisory groups, apply to serve. So it's right there on that page. So Appointments Project, we can be a resource for you through that process, especially as you get to the state level and maybe navigating, what does Senate confirmation look like? What do I need to prepare? How exactly do I do that? And sometimes it's just, you know, information and following up on a vacancy, maybe who to contact. And for boards and commissions, it really varies depending on the municipality, the city, county. But you could be following up with the city clerk, with the appointments director, if they have one, with the chief of staff, with the manager of administration. So it does vary a little bit, but Appointments Project is here to help you through that process as you have questions. And we also really think it's important to celebrate all the appointments of women. And by doing that, it's a great example for other women to see, oh, wow, maybe this is an opportunity for me as well. And so it's really the fun part is to celebrate all of our appointees. So what's in it for me? You know, these just a lot of great benefits by serving personally. And I know our appointees that are on the call today can talk a lot more about that than even I can, but just the development, expanding your network, and really making that impact in your community. We know that it improves decision-making, increases bipartisanship. We definitely see this as we get into women who are serving in elected office, being able to work between party lines to push bills forward. And so just having that different approach at the table is so important. And the diversity improves public trust. And so once again, boards and commissions, when they're representative of their communities become stronger. So before we get to our appointees today to talk about their experiences, I just wanted to remind you, you can register with the Appointments Project at www.united-we.org. You can also see some of our other work, our research, our policies and best practices that are all available on our website as well. So today, I'm so excited that these women are sharing their time with us. We have Niki Lee Donawa, and she is going to be talking about her work with the Kansas City Healthcare Foundation Community Advisory Committee. And then we have Jennifer Ingraham with the Missouri Community Service Commission. And then we'll hear from Carolyn Watley with the Jackson County Pension Plan Board. And so be thinking of your questions for these women, your questions about the appointment process, as well as boards they serve on. Just really, really excited to have them here today to share their experiences. And so I am going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see everyone's faces. And we're going to start with Niki Lee Donawa, and she is going to tell us about her experiences with her board. So Niki, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, Beth. Hi, everyone. So mine goes way back when Mayor Sly James first announced the whole appointments project, and I got the invite. I think there was a reception being held down at the Kemper Museum, as a matter of fact. And I went down to learn out of interest because I had been serving on non-for-profit boards and committees, but I had never served on a civic board or commission. And so I had interest because I wanted to learn more about how I could serve my community. So went down, signed up, filled out the application, and I wait for my phone to ring. Quite honestly, I didn't know what was next, and because it was newly formed, I think that was maybe one of the other areas that other people were kind of like, okay, what do I do next? But I simply decided, okay, well, I'm going to look through this list of boards and commissions and figure out where I can serve, and then go ahead and just make a few phone calls. And that is what I did. And I made a few phone calls and reached out to the mayor's office and expressed interest again. And shortly after that, I did get a letter of appointment to the Health Forward Foundation Community Advisory Council. And so I've been on the council now since 2013. I served as chair of the council at one point, chair of the nominating committee. And I will tell you what I learned most about the difference between the nonprofit and the civic boards or commissions is that you really do become a voice for others. And so in the role of being a community advisory person, you start to listen with more intention, basically, because when you're at the table, you've got a seat at the table and you just don't want to waste that opportunity. So I'm still with Health Forward Foundation. I believe I'm terming off here shortly, but I tell you, it's opened up a lot of doors. And now I just have to realize that my no button cannot be broken or I'll be on too many.
Thank you, Niki. I'm going to pass it to you, Jennifer. Jennifer Ingraham, and she is going to talk. And Jennifer serves on a state board, which is a little different, and I'll let her talk about that.
Absolutely. Greetings, everyone. And I do want to point out there may be some ambient noise behind me. I'm coming to you today from Legends Stadium because there's a Kansas City women's soccer game at 1 o'clock. And by golly, I was not going to miss it. So I do want to give a world of thanks to Win for KC and the leadership out here with the soccer team for finding me a place that's sort of quiet at the stadium so I can still participate today. So everybody buy tickets and come support our team. But you actually asked about the Appointments Project. So I'll talk about that. I do sit on one city board for Kansas City, Missouri, the Crossroads Arts District's Planned Industrial Expansion Authority. And that experience was very similar to what Niki was describing, in that God bless the Appointments Project and doing the homework for all of us and showing us the path, how to apply and make ourselves known to those who are going to eventually make the right decisions. Because I think that's how that Crossroads board came about for me, was I actually knew some of the people in Sly James administration. So just being present and in the right place at the right time is part of how that one came about. But the state board, there were a lot more licks to the center of that Tootsie Pop. And when Beth said earlier, some people it could take up to 18 months, that was about my path from searching through the possible commissions for the state of Missouri, really taking time, and I encourage this for everyone, to look for where you feel like you are also going to be an asset to that commission, because once it gets going, it can be a little bit of a heavy volunteer lift for you. So you want it to be that tight fit for things that you're passionate about. When I looked at the choices for the state of Missouri, I really did kind of zone in on three that I thought I would enjoy and that I could bring something valuable to them. And it was funny because I watched one get filled with a couple friends from around the state. And then, you know, later the other one, I'm like, okay, that ship has sailed. And I thought, okay, maybe I need to start over. And then there was that all of a sudden phone call that came in. And I know there's an order of how these things should happen. They don't always happen in the right order. I should have heard from my senator first. I heard from the governor's office first. Doesn't matter. It all worked out. There's a whole background check piece of it. And so I got to go, you know, get fingerprinted at a state patrol. And I had to go do it a second time because a whole year lapsed between the first background check and the second. But it all comes out in the wash. The Missouri Community Service Commission, which is the one that eventually worked out for me, I did learn there was some staff turnover. They were hiring a new executive director. So they had put seeking new commissioners on the back burner. That's logical. They got their new leader in place, and then they came back around, and there were 4 of us who were appointed at the same time, and all went down to Jeff City, went through our hearings together, and now I'm a whole 90 days in. So I have a world of notes in front of me because I'm still learning everything about the commission. But in short, our job is to promote volunteerism and community service in the state of Missouri, in particular through AmeriCorps. The Missouri Community Service Commission is under the Business and Community Solutions Division of the Missouri Department of Economic Development because of the value of volunteerism and the value AmeriCorps members bring to our state. And the top project we're working on right now is helping the CORE Act get through Congress. We're setting up meetings with Senator Blunt, and in my case, also Congressman Graves, because he represents that congressional district for me, in hopes that this act will make it through Congress, and that would bring another $8 billion in funding for AmeriCorps nationwide that then would be deployed out to the states.
That's great. That's amazing. Thank you, Jennifer. We'll turn it now to Carolyn Watley. Carolyn, can you tell us a little bit about your pension board?
I will, thank you. And Jennifer, bring us home a win, please. We all wish we were there with you. So you're making us all jealous, but nonetheless, we'll get out there, we promise. We definitely want to support that, our new women's soccer team. So congrats to you. So my name is Carolyn Watley, and I'm with CBiz, and I have been with CBiz my entire career and have been in the employee benefits consulting business. So that's my area of expertise. And I have been the president of our employee benefits division here in Kansas City in the past. I'm currently our vice president of community engagement, and that gives me a lot of opportunity to be out and about in the community. And my civic journey, I had served on many nonprofit boards, and intentionally I served on a lot of boards that were healthcare related because of the business that I've been in. So things like the Kidney Foundation, the Heart Association, KU Advancement Board, Truman Medical Center Foundation, et cetera, have been areas of interest, as well as just things that I enjoy, such as Starlight Theater, sports, been involved in the Urban Youth Academy, the First Tee Foundation, and also things like Kansas City Public Television and the Kansas City Campus for Animal Care. So supporting those organizations as well. And then I had an opportunity to serve on civic boards such as the Greater Kansas City Chamber, which I currently have the honor of chairing, which is awesome. And then because of maybe some of the opportunities where I had put myself out into the community, I was offered an opportunity to serve on a committee by Mayor Sly James, which was a review committee for the Kansas City, Missouri pension boards. It was a pension task force for the Missouri, for the Kansas City retirement programs for the Kansas City staff employees, as well as the police and fire department. And so that was a committee that was just making recommendations based on just kind of overseeing what it was currently and making recommendations. And so when there was an opportunity for the Jackson County Pension Board, and working with the WE project and the appointments project, I was identified as a potential candidate for the Jackson County Pension Board, for the Pension Plan Board of Trustees. And I have an interest in employee benefits, obviously, because that is my background. I am a resident of Jackson County, which is required for this board. And Caitlin, I saw in your chat a question about residency. And in this particular instance, it is required to be a resident of Jackson County, which I am and have been my entire life as well. And so there are 11 trustees. This is an appointment by the Jackson County Executive and approved by the Jackson County Legislature. I serve in an independent business executive seat, and it is the board also includes active employees, some labor representation, and other independent business members. It's a very diverse board. I am the only woman independent business member currently, but it is a very diverse board, and I really appreciate it. I'm new on the board, so I've only had a couple of meetings. We meet generally quarterly. And so let's see, we also have fiduciary duties. We have responsibility for the overall governance of the plan. And so we are the trustee for the funds that are going to be available for the retirees of Jackson County and their dependents. So it's very, very important work to be done. It does require some annual training on an ongoing basis and certain training within 90 days of appointment. And so that's valuable as well. And we also have many consultants that the board works with. So consultants that are investment managers, investment consultants, actuaries, legal consultants, et cetera. So we get a lot of good advice and expertise from professionals in that space. So it's an opportunity for me to give back to the community and to Jackson County to learn and meet new people, utilize the expertise that I have for the benefit of others, and specifically those wonderful employees and retirees of Jackson County, which we appreciate very much. So thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. This is just so beneficial for everyone to hear. Before we head into the Q&A, I wanted to ask if you could just talk about, what are some of the main differences that you've experienced serving on a nonprofit board versus the appointed board, and just to kind of help the audience have an understanding of, and maybe it's more of the culture than even some of the specifics. But if I could throw that question out to you, Niki, do you have any thoughts?
Sure. Beth, I was thinking about that too. And with the nonprofit boards, for the most part, you do serve because of, in my opinion, a very specific or special interest. For example, I was very interested and still am in the arts. And so I found myself serving on Arts KC and serving on the Kansas City Friends of Alvin Ailey board. And the difference being that when you serve in a civic capacity, it's a much more global, I guess, thought process about how you reach individuals and an entire community for the betterment of the community, not just for music or not just for art, if that makes sense. The other thing is there's usually a fundraising component when you're serving on non-for-profit boards. And so you are definitely out there to raise money. Usually on civic boards, that's not the case. So there's a little bit of difference there. And I would say for the most part, there's a much heavier lift, I guess I'll say, with the serving on the civic boards. You just feel a really huge responsibility to your community when you do that. So, yeah.
Great. Jennifer, thoughts?
Yeah, sure. The first thing that came to mind was actually with that Crossroads board. That's the city board I'm on. It actually almost feels like a task force. We have a very defined role that we're to play. And the first year I was on it, it was pretty much everyone get prepared for the annual meeting, a very long lunch meeting where we went over all of these applications for tax abatements for artist-owned buildings in the Crossroads. And it was my first year, so I probably followed a lot of what everyone, there were a lot of known artists and there were a lot of quick approvals. But then we went through an election and new officials came into office, and their priorities were a little bit different regarding, regarding TIF, regarding tax abatements, et cetera. And we started really getting a lot tougher the next year. And so now there's a lot more time spent making sure that what we're doing is very much in alignment with the elected officials, previous administration and the new administration. So it's been interesting to watch how the workload has changed based on who's in office. And with the state one, I'm finding that one goes back to that classic, you get out of it what you put into it. There was recently an opportunity to go represent the commission in Joplin when they were having their 10-year remembrance of the tornado, and also the rebuild and the renaissance that has occurred down there in Joplin. And they really wanted to celebrate the role volunteers played in both in that time of natural disaster, that time of need, as well as all along the way. And I was the one who said, I'll travel, because not everybody wants to travel. And now that we have Zoom, it's probably easy for a lot of us to say, I'm not getting in the car and I'm not taking that day. I am so glad I went, in particular, because I met all of these college students who are taking gap years to serve in AmeriCorps, and they were down there making the ceremony itself possible that day. But you also saw Joplin residents come up, and if they saw the AmeriCorps brand, I saw one woman burst into tears thanking them for all that they did 10 years ago. And so you get to see what the work that you're representing in action if you do the extra. And so that's one of the things we all have to balance our time commitments, but when you can, if you can do the extra, it's so worth it.
Thank you. Thank you. And Carolyn, is there anything additional you wanted to add?
I would just say, I would agree with Niki that I feel very much the weight of the appointment. So there are fiduciary duties with this board. And so I do serve as a fiduciary. So I think there's a true weight with that responsibility that I feel. I also, because I'm new in the role, haven't really had an in-person meeting yet with the group. And so I'm looking forward to that and the opportunity to build those relationships in a stronger way than I have been able to through Zoom only. But other than that, it's very similar to other boards that I have served on.
Thank you. And just like everything else, COVID has kind of changed the experience for boards and commissions this past year. And I also know that municipalities, have had some challenges. And so some of these board vacancies, different ones have become different levels of priority. So it's affected everything. Before I switch it back to the chamber for audience Q&A, I do have one last question for you all. And if you could talk about the specific time commitment for your board, and how did you make that decision in terms of, work, life, volunteer balance? And why was it important to you? And in terms of like prepping for a meeting for your board, kind of what does that look like? Jennifer, I start with you if that's all right.
Sure. And I so appreciate that question, because that was even a part of my decision process in the boards that I was selecting and saying I would be interested in being a part of this board or this commission, because many of them have that as a part of the information in the first place. Missouri Community Service Commission is designed to be 4 meetings throughout the year, a quarterly meeting schedule. In the past, it has been everyone driving somewhere, so it was probably 4 days away from work. And I felt that that was manageable. And then outside of that, they describe it as maybe 15 to 20 additional hours between meetings. And that's primarily emails and phone calls. And that felt like a lift that I could manage.
Great. Niki?
I think Jennifer had even mentioned it earlier when she said it's important to choose a board or a commission that is really relevant to you. I work at Truman Medical Center's University Health, and so going on to the Health Forward Foundation's Community Advisory Council just made a lot of sense to me. There were so many synergies that I just made it work for me in both roles for the most part. And so I think that is pretty important, because when you do choose something that's completely out of, your day-to-day career, then that is on top of your day-to-day career that you have to find time for. And so as a chief community relations officer, it was pretty much a no-brainer. So it's worked really well for me. So the time commitment has just made sense in my job. So
Carolyn, thoughts with your work with CBIZ and balancing that time?
So as Niki mentioned, in my role as in community engagement, it really fits right in, and it is related to the work that I've done my entire career in the employee benefit consulting space. And also being an empty nester at this point in my life. So I think you go through different phases in your life. And as an empty nester, there is time for things that in the past there might not have been, with running kids around from here to there, at least for me anyway. And so it fit nicely in. And as Jennifer's mentioning, this group meets quarterly as well, and it is local. So there isn't really any travel related to that, other than if I go downtown to Jackson County headquarters. But so that works out well, and I'm out and about in the city on a regular basis anyway. So at least now anyway, post-COVID.
Great.
And Beth, I will just mention this too, with the civic boards and commissions, I think your time commitment is a little bit more predictable. When I serve more on nonprofits, there's galas, there's events, there's fundraisers, there's, all these various committees that you might serve on within the nonprofit itself. And so you can just find yourself going 24/7 a lot of times with nonprofit boards. But at least with this one, we know when our meetings are, we know what committee we belong to, we know when those meetings are. And so a little bit more predictability with your time.
That's a great point. Thank you so much, Niki, Jennifer, and Carolyn, for taking time out of your busy days and away from the soccer game to talk to us about your experiences and your boards. And thanks again to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this and making this a priority for women and gender parity and representation at the table in the civic leadership positions. I'll turn it back to the Chamber of Commerce for Q&A. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. We have a couple of questions that have come through. First one was about clarifying residency requirements around appointments. So for example, we have someone who's living in Johnson County, but works in Kansas City, Missouri, and would like to look at options on both sides. What are those requirements for appointments?
I'll start off and then turn it over to the others, but I think Carolyn had mentioned for her board, there is a requirement to live in Jackson County. There are some boards in Kansas City that do not require residency, but the majority do. And oftentimes some of the state boards require representation from a specific district or a specific county across the state. And so they are out there. There are some options, but not as many for the specific, if you live in the specific jurisdiction of the city. And I don't know, Jennifer and Niki, on the boards you serve, do they require residency?
No, not necessarily. I'm on the Community Advisory Council of the Health Board Foundation board, but having been on the nominating committee for the board itself, it is much more regional. Therefore, we do look for appointing authorities on both sides of the state line. So we want that representation from Johnson County. We want that, representation from just about any area surrounding county. So, you do not have to live and or work in either specific area to serve on the foundation board.
I'd have to double check. I think there's flexibility on the Crossroads one, actually, even though it's for KCMO. Obviously for the Missouri Community Service Commission, yes, Missouri resident. But the other thing that is interesting, and I think Carolyn did a great job of when she was talking about her board, she was talking about just the really defined spots, the certain professional assets. And so there are really defined roles where they're trying to recruit people. And my commission has some of that as well. So I know exactly which slot I filled. Also, our commission right now is very strong along the I-70 corridor. And so there's some real intention behind finding folks from Southwest Missouri and also North Central Missouri. So we know that they're trying to get the representation that's not there today. And that kind of thing could be an opportunity for someone when you're looking at maybe a statewide board. If you see Greater Kansas City is absent, that could be a real opportunity for them.
Thank you. One other question we had come through was, how much does your likelihood to receive an appointment depend on your job title?
I can kind of start off with that. I think sometimes a board position might require you have experience in a specific industry. Job title, I have never seen a board or commission where it is stated that you must have a certain level in order to apply a level of position in terms of and I don't know if I'm going the right direction with this question, but vice president or manager or director, I've yet to see a board position that requires that. And, Jennifer, Niki, Carolyn, maybe you can talk about kind of on your boards, if you've seen a certain, particular level of applicant or board members serving, that seems to be kind of part of the culture of that board.
I don't think it's so much the level of job or job title. I do know that nominating committees or even appointment authorities look at your experience. And even if you've only served on not-for-profit boards, looking at your level of impact that you had on the board that you were serving on, even within the community, or how it actually touched the relevancy of the board you're looking at, the commission or civic board you're looking at. But I'm not convinced it's job title, because I've gone from Jazz Museum to Criminal Justice Advisory Board. And so no, I do think experience counts though.
I'll quickly second that. Don't even need to add to it. Niki was right on.
I agree with that. And I think oftentimes, as Beth mentioned, it's a combination of experience and your geographic location, and maybe the role that again, that opening has, such as mine, which is a business executive position. So I think that it just oftentimes a combination of all of those things. And now I think a lot gender and diversity as well. So it's what's your combination package that you bring to the table, and how does that fit in with what else is already there, and what is needed to round out that board or commission.
What would you say is the best way to get someone's foot in the door and prepare for when a position becomes available?
I'll start with networking. If you know what area you want to serve in, then get involved no matter how you can get involved. You may not be appointed to the board, but if you know that a lot of the meetings are public meetings that are open for attendance, there may be other things going on around that specific board or commission. Become an advocate. That's what I was thinking about along the lines too, that advocacy is one of those areas that really spans across any board that you're on, whether it's not-for-profit or civic, because you'll find yourself advocating for the cause and the reason why you're serving in the first place. So I think because of that, there's a lot of opportunity to just stay involved and stay present in the forefront of in people's minds.
I think that's very true. I think nonprofit boards also can help give you some of that experience and connections as well, to Niki's point about networking. And obviously the Appointments Project has lots of great ideas. And so you all are a great asset that I think anyone that wants to be on a board or commission can tap into, and all of the connections that you have. And again, I think it's finding your passion and interest, and just working it like you would any other job opportunity. How do I work it so that I can get there and achieve that milestone?
I concur that the networking and your own hustle can pay off. And I know that even with the state board, because I told you I had that long lag time where I was waiting, and as I saw some other appointments happening throughout the state, saw a couple friends get appointed. So I was reaching out to them and asking them about their experience. And by then they were getting to know the people. Kyle down in the Appointments Project in the governor's office. And I know a couple of them kind of asked a couple questions and did a little nudging for me. So that was a little bit of my own hustle, trying to help move it along. So everybody, if you're spending your lunchtime with us today, you've got the hustle.
We have a couple more questions before we wrap up. The most nonprofit organizations carry directors and officers insurance. Is that the case for civic boards as well?
Jennifer, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think it depends. We've gone through all the conflict of interest type of paperwork and administration that we need to with Missouri Community Service Commission. We approve grants, but we don't have fiscal authority ultimately over it. So I do not believe we are covered by, I know that typical insurance that you would have for board directors when I've sat on a nonprofit board. But you know what? I'm going to double check that one.
Carolyn, does your board have something similar?
Yes, it would have that, and that would be a requirement before anyone should agree to serve on that board, for sure.
Same for you, Niki? Has that been your experience?
Absolutely. And I think in some cases, especially like with the Health Forward Foundation, when you're when you are looking over billions of dollars, you need that, you need general counsel, period. So yeah, I think we have to cross our T's and dot our I's from that perspective. So we are covered.
Final question. Does Appointments Project participants and/or United We have networking opportunities to meet with other appointees?
So obviously networking has looked a little different this past year. But yes, we are continuing to look at ways that we can connect appointees with those interested in serving on boards. We have a series that we have launched with University of Kansas, and it is ready to represent. It'll be starting back up in the fall. And this program has offers mentoring, and it has 3 different components. One is for women who want to run for boards or want to apply to boards and commissions, women who want to run for office, and then it has a collegiate component to it as well. But that program was kind of our first launch of some mentoring circles, which has been really successful. But that's definitely an area that our organization is looking to grow. So I would recommend just kind of following our website. Feel free to reach out to me. One of the things that we've been able to do through the Appointments Project registrants, I'll give an example of someone I had that was really wanting to be on the Kansas City, Missouri Liquor Board, and she had applied and was just kind of waiting in the wings. We have an appointee through Appointments Project that was serving on that board, and I was able to connect them. And so not only did she really get a good idea of what that board does, she started to meet some of the people on the board. And so, you know, we've kind of been able to do that on an informal basis. There is an event coming up in Kansas City, Missouri, that will be for current board members, and then inviting those who are interested in joining boards and commissions. And we'll have information on our website about that as well. That will be kind of an organic opportunity to learn more and meet other folks serving. And you know, one thing too, in terms of that, it never hurts to, you know, attend a board or commission meeting that you might be interested in joining. Or reach out, you know, if it's at the municipal level, reach out to your city council person and tell them your interest as well, and maybe try to set up a meeting with them.
Thank you all. With that, I'm going to give the floor back to Lindsay.
Thank you, Beth, for sharing more about the Appointments Project with us. And thank you again to our panelists, Niki Lee Donawa, Jennifer Ingraham, and Carolyn Watley, for sharing with us their experiences on boards and commissions. I'd also like to thank our Women's Leadership presenting sponsors, Bank Midwest and KPMG. Their support makes our programming possible and helps to achieve our mission of promoting the visibility, development, and advancement of women in business leadership positions. We would like to remind you that nominations for the Athena and Athena Young Professional Leadership Awards are now open until June 30th. You can submit your nominations on our website at kcchamber.com and via the link that I will put in the chat. We will honor our award recipients at the Athena Awards on October 7th from 5 to 7 p.m. Again, thank you so much to everyone who joined us and participated in today's event. Have a great afternoon.
Who's gotta hear my song? I'm gonna learn from every day. I'm gonna give back when life takes. I know, the world's gotta hear my song. I was born to be a leader. I was born to move mountains. I was born to sing louder, shouting to every I've got stories on my mind of those who led before my time.